Howdy ho guys, and welcome to another Bojinjin vlog. In this entry I wanted to basically take what I've been talking about in the past few entries and basically try and wrap it up nicely, right? So this entry is kind of like the crux of everything that I've been talking about in terms of, owning your experience and consulting your feelings. My central teaching of tapping into your sensitivity, right? And the reason why I teach about this in particular, right, is because it's kind of what's needed in today's society. It's like I say in previous entries, our society is by and large very energetically insensitive, which means that our society is basically governed by scientific, philosophical, capitalistic kind of ideals and values, and this is what basically creates the society where we're in now, which basically teaches us to basically keep a stiff upper lip and just follow your dreams, but in a way that's you have to keep progressing, and that's fine. That's one aspect of life, is that we need to progress, but at the same time, many of us find ourselves unhappy, not really knowing why. I talked about this many times in my entries. That's the reason why this is my central teaching, really. It's because people nowadays, like Teal Swan says, we live in an emotional dark age, so this is why I teach this, right? And in this entry I want to talk about the main reason why we feel so stuck, right? I've been basically alluding to this in previous entries. Consult your feelings, tap into your sensitivity, go in the direction of your joy, but also in the direction of your pain. Keep kind of consciously, because it's become a thing that needs to be consciously done in many cases. Particularly, well, in my own case this is true, right? I have to consciously decide to dive into my feelings, because the default is basically to escape my feelings, right? That's the default that we live with. It's very easy to escape your feelings. There's a lovely thing called the internet, and many of us spend if you really consciously think about it, it's kind of crazy how much time we spend online. It's crazy, and on kind of media, games, films, shows, whatever it is, we spend an inordinate amount of time on those things, right? And so the default is to escape from our feelings. It's really easy to do that, right? But what we need to do is to consciously begin to tap into our sensitivity and to try to start to listen to the way that we feel, right? And that's very scary. It's like, a lot of the times it's the most illogical thing you could do. It's like, okay, right now I'm stressed out, but I have this thing I need to complete. I need this goal that I'm trying to aim towards, and I'm fucking trying my absolute fucking best to keep a level head, not to burn out. But I need to do this thing. I have 50 million other kind of commitments in life that I need to deal with right now. I have no fucking time to just sit down and think about how I feel. It's like, who has time to think about how the fuck they feel? Nobody, right? But alas, it's something that we need to do, right, moving forwards. So the reason why many of us get into this trap of insensitivity towards energy is mostly because of social conditioning, right? We're taught from an early age that essentially emotions are wrong, essentially. We may have abstract ideas such as, oh, happiness is what I should have. I should go towards a life of happiness, right? But the truth is that even that is an abstract kind of a borrowed, like value. It's not even a value. It's just like an abstract idea that you've been fed with. It makes sense logically that happiness is what I want, right? And so you have kind of this abstract desire, this abstract expectation that happiness is going to fulfill you, right? But the message that we've buried subconsciously within us is that emotionality is wrong, right? And this can, again, the kind of narrative that we're fed, if not directly, indirectly, is that the ideal citizen, or like the kind of ideal persona that people look up to is like the type A personality, right? Where you're in control of your emotions at all times, you don't freak out, you're stable, you're resilient, you're secure, you have integrity, and all of these things, right? And this is what has fostered like a very destructive thing, right? Because the thing that you begin to realize when you tap into your sensitivity, when you tap into your feeling, the chaos of it, right? The fear of it, is you realize that you are not a stable entity. You are not an entity that stays the same, that can control his or her emotions whenever the fuck you want, and the kind of like you could say subconscious defense mechanism we've installed against this is we've become subconscious to the sides of us that basically lash out, right? So it takes quite a while to reach this revelation, basically. Like, it took me years of basically like just wondering why the fuck I'm so dysfunctional. Why am I so like illogical and unable to like feel okay 24/7, and like not be triggered and stuff like that. And it's like the message that kept coming back to me was that, well, maybe I'm just not like that. Maybe it's my attitude towards my emotional instability, you could say, that is causing a problem, right? And again, the defense mechanism that we install is to basically bury the sides of us that we deem chaotic and and unstable and socially unacceptable, right? How do you even define that? What is socially unacceptable or not, right? Well, it's it comes down to like the kind of buried subconscious feeling that you have, and the reason is very kind of, it's difficult to explain this, like why we do this, because the message I have to provide in this video is that we are energetic beings. We were born with energetic sensitivity because energy is the way that the world manifests. It's the way that this physical world, manifests and moves, right? It is energy, right? And so it would not make sense to be born into this world without energetic sensitivity. There are people born with diseases where they're unable to feel emotion. And like, needless to say, like, their lives are very difficult because they don't have that very important connection with life that is your energetic sensitivity, right? And so we are inherently energetically sensitive beings. We are inherently chaotic. We have feelings that change constantly. We have, sensations that are difficult to predict and to compartmentalize, right? And because of this, and it's like, but the way that we've been brought up is that we believe that this is wrong, right? And the feeling that the judgment that this is wrong itself is what's the word I'm looking for? Is insane. Like, it is like trying to push a boulder up a vertical cliff, You know, that feeling of like, you know, emotionality is wrong. But and the feeling is like trying to push this boulder up a vertical cliff. It's impossible, right? But we've buried that feeling so deeply and like given it such little voice that it's difficult to articulate because it's so suppressed within us, right? But the crux of what my teaching is meant to kind of be applied to, of how my teaching it can be applied to real life, how you can connect with life, how you can be okay with life unraveling, right? And the chaos that is inherent in the world out there and in the world within ourselves, right? Is to accept the fact that we are energetically sensitive, emotionally unstable creatures, right? How often do you judge someone that you might know or you've seen in the media or something that is like a loose cannon, right? It's like, it's like they're so emotional that it just makes you want to puke. You know, how often does that happen to you, right? Particularly if like you're like a man, right? Because like men, particularly in society, like we're the ones who are expected. Even though it's curious the way that, you know, gender dynamics have played out in society, where you have like basically like a kind of like depolarization of our sexes, so that men are becoming, you know, men in today's society are becoming less traditionally masculine, and females in today's society are becoming less traditionally feminine. Still, the expectation on our genders is that males have to be the emotionally stable ones. They have to be the ones with a cool, level head, right? And so emotional instability in men is frowned upon even more than women, who are at least expected to be emotional, right? And, you know, the reality is that it doesn't matter. You know, like, men and female are different. Men and women are different, right? But that doesn't change the fact that we have the same emotional circuitry. It's just that the expectation that is placed upon us is different. You know, and in a way that is what creates the potential for us to fall in, you know, under the categories of men and women, right? But anyway, I'm not going to get into that because, like, you know, that's like a massive other area, right? But the reason why we feel so much kind of repulsion towards like dramatic people is because of our own suppression of our emotionality, right? Deep down, we are emotional beings, right? And because we've suppressed this, when we see it in another, when we see it kind of hurts us on two levels, right? It hurts us because we've been made to believe that emotionality is wrong. And so when we see that in someone else, something that is so obviously wrong from a logical sense, it pisses us off, right? But secondly, like the kind of freedom, we don't necessarily see it like this when we're coming from this kind of like jaded, abstract, like logical, like prudish perspective, right? But the freedom that they have, you know, their ability, their kind of like propensity to just blurt things out and to like go from A to B, like, you know, like insanely quickly, you know, like they're happy one moment, then they're sad the next, and then they're angry, and then like this is happening, and then they're crazy, and the next minute they're silent, you know, the way that they just like move that way energetically, it subconsciously hits you on a level that where you know that you don't have that. Right? You don't have the freedom that they have, right? You're trying to push this fucking boulder up this vertical cliff, right? But you know, it's become so subconscious, but like you recognize that like this person is taking the shortcut, right? You're trying to push this fucking boulder up this vertical cliff. This other person is just taking the shortcut around, right? And they're so free to express themselves that like you resent them. You're like, fuck this person. You know, you you don't even know why you hate them. You know, you can come up with all these reasons, like because it's wrong to be emotionally like sensitive and dramatic, right? But the real reason, the emotional subconscious reason, is because they are free and you are not. Because they have taken the easy way, the easy path in life, and you have not, right? And you don't even know why they have chosen the easy path and you've chosen the hard path, because you're so subconscious, right? But the thing that you discover, the more that you tap into your sensitivity, the more that you discover the emotional side of you, the feeling body, right? The more you realize that you are just as emotionally unstable, in inverted commas. You are just as dramatic. You are just as expressive. You are just as taboo, you know, as all of these other people that you've come to judge, right? And the thing that causes you to be stuck, that you need to unravel, is this subconscious conditioning that has become subconscious, but is ultimately you being taught that emotionality is wrong, and that you need to be you need to be like level-headed all the time. You need to not like switch from like emotional state to emotional state, right? And you need to tap in, and tapping into sensitivity will slowly unravel that. You know, being brave enough to like be angry when you're angry, be happy when you're happy. You know, eat this when you're feeling like it. Do this when you feel like it. Allowing yourself, right? Allowing yourself, allowing your existence, allowing your resistance, right? And you'll come to discover that you are emotionally unstable. That's what you come to discover. That's what I mean, is that we're inherently emotionally like, well, the world is fucking chaos, right? The world, like, tomorrow there could be an earthquake or a hurricane that wipes out where you live. Like, you know, like someone you love could die, or you could suffer some kind of strange malady or deformation of your body, right? Or maybe something less severe, you know, like something will happen, you'll lose your job, you'll like break up with your SO, right? With your significant other. Something will happen that just kicks your ass, and you're left like wondering what the fuck happened, you know? And the same is true of our emotions, right? You know, you could be completely feeling okay. You know, you could be like completely happy one day and like, yes, I'm so glad that life is so amazing. And then the next minute, someone comes and completely fucks up for you, and you get pissed off. You start to think that you are like this worthless piece of shit. Like, that's just how life is, right? And the trick is to slowly, through tapping into your sensitivity, to release the expectation that you have to be an emotionally sterile person, right? It's to slowly understand that you are an emotionally like unstable person, right? And this is my message, right? And then now I'm going to basically give you, well, what then happens is that you will start to move through emotional states very quickly, right? Once you've let go of this expectation, you will start to go through emotional states very quickly. And what this looks like is like you might be angry one minute, you might be happy the next, right? And yeah, you might want to be careful how you do this, right? Because the world is not quite ready. This is the kind of paradox, or rather the kind of like conflicting kind of ideas, is that like I'm teaching you how to tap into your sensitivity, right? And I'm not necessarily teaching you how to like thrive in society, right? The society is not necessarily ready for people who are like this sensitive to their emotions, right? But yeah, anyway, so you just like you get used to like just being with how the fuck you feel, right? And you'll notice that this changes more and more quickly the more that you do this, right? So essentially what happens like physically is that the time between your emotional states will shorten, right? And this is essentially well, the benefit of this obviously is that you, like, typically it's the although yeah, typically it's the negative emotional states that we resist and suppress, right? But what, the net effect of this is that, like, it actually suppresses all of our emotions, like positive and negative, right? But it means that the connection with life is slowly, like, is opened, right? So actually, I talked about this in my previous entry, which was about indigo and crystal and rainbow children, which is basically like a placeholder, like horoscopes kind of a thing, which basically points towards our conscious evolution from the point of energetic sensitivity, where, like, we basically, like, allow ourselves to be more and more energetically sensitive, such that, like, we basically, like our perceptions and our expression, like, gets to such a level that, like, we start to, like, kind of connect more and more with everything around us, right? We start to tap into the the kind of, like, the idea of oneness, but yeah, so the thing that you will observe is that your emotional states will become more and more erratic in a way. Like, they'll become shorter and shorter, and you'll move through emotional states very quickly. So, like, whereas before you would, like, be angry for, like, days or hours or whatever, longer than you want, right? And that's when you feel that resistance feeling, right? That kind of gripping in your chest, where it's like, I don't want to be angry anymore. But once you're able to, like, the tool I gave you, the judgment back step, where you fall into your anger, surrender to it, and then you also kind of feel that gripping resistance feeling, and the judgment that you have placed towards the anger, like, I don't want to be angry, right? You allow even that, and you just go with the feeling, right? Completely, right? And it takes courage, right? It's not like a logical process or like a step-by-step process. It's like it's very much a visceral thing. It's like pain, it's like taste, it's sensation, it's pure sensation, right? It's pure feeling. So, like, you just have to, like, turn the volume knob up, basically. That's how it feels. So, like, if you're in a nightclub, or, like, you're in a house party and you turn the volume up, you can feel, like, the kick drum, like, poof, 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 right? You can feel it more and more in your body, and that's kind of an analogy you can use, right? But basically, you just let how the fuck you feel flow through you. And the trick here, because this is the trap that I still fall under, actually. I still fall. I still fall into this trap, is you have to know when to let go of that, right? Because initially it's going to be very, like, like I said, it's a conscious thing to have to tap into your emotions and your sensitivity, right? But you have to basically then let go of your anger if you're angry, or let go of your sadness if you're sad, right? To make room for the next thing, which, if it's negative, it tends to be positive, right? If it's positive, it tends to be negative, right? So the goal is not just to feel more, but it's to surrender more and more to, like, the dynamism of your emotions, right? Because it's, when we start off, it's like, okay, I need to tap into my sensitivity. I'm going to be angry right now, but then, like, because it's like you're still thinking about it, you can get to a point where you start to, like, run out of energy. Like, for example, if you're angry and you're like, I'm in that state, but then, like, slowly that energy starts to dissipate, because energy is always moving. This is what we have to realize, right? And that motion is not facilitated well by our thinking, right? It's a feeling thing. It's a visceral thing. And initially, like, we try to, like, even as the energy is waning, we try to cling on to that feeling. It's like, I need to keep being angry. And, like, you might not verbalize that in your head, but, like, that's the way that you try to, like, force yourself to be angry, right? and then that causes resistance, and then again that causes you to be insensitive to energy, because you're like, this emotional stuff is bullshit, you know? It's like, I thought that the solution would be to just be angry, but I'm finding now that being angry is exhausting, and like, it just makes me into a dickhead. You know, like when, like, for example, you get triggered by someone, right? And you feel like you have to be angry towards that person to honor yourself, right? You know, to be present with your feelings. But then, like, you stop being angry with that person, but you're still kind of acting in a very, like, kind of aggressive way towards them. And you start to feel like, why am I being so angry towards this person? But you're like, no, I need to be angry. I decided that I'm going to be angry. And then, like, you know, and it's a mess, right? But this next stage means that you let yourself be like, you stop expecting yourself to be emotionally stable. You are an emotionally unstable being, right? And I was just thinking, like, it almost sounds, the way I talk, like I'm trying to, like, get people to, like, jump off a cliff or something, or, like, act like idiots. Again, I'm only teaching you how to, like, tap into your sensitivity, right? And in my experience, even though that I have learned this about myself, I haven't committed any crimes or anything. Like, I haven't become a terrorist, you know. I haven't gone around, like, you know, vandalizing things. It's just like, you can do this in, like, intelligent ways, right? You can do this, and I'm going to do an entry about this after this one, but, like, one way of doing this is to go out, take a recorder with you, you know, an audio recorder, and just speak your mind. Go somewhere quiet, you know. If you have a car, go to your car, take the recorder, and just let it rip. Whatever the fuck you feel like talking about or feel like expressing, go and do it, right? That in my life has been the most important practice for me, I think. It's been, like, towards this, right? It's just having a space, you know, a safe space, going to my car, for example, and taking, like, my phone with me, and like, recording sessions where I just kind of cathart, and also to speak my mind, right? And to express myself, right? And this is very helpful if you're like me, who's, like, quite like a naturally, like, not very expressive person, particularly in front of other people. Like, this gives you a space. It gives you kind of like a sanctuary, basically, where you can express your feelings. Right. I'm going to talk about this more in the next entry. But yeah, you know, that's one way of doing it, right? And again, I'm offering this teaching because it was one of my latest realizations, like, surrounding this whole emotional thing, right? It's hard. Like, it's simple in a way. It's not, like, you know, conceptually hard. It's just, it requires a lot of kind of courage, and it's all a feeling thing, right? But I'm only kind of divulging my own life experiences, my own realizations, right? You know, again, this doesn't mean that if you're not at a stage where, like, you can even be, like, emotionally unstable, because it takes some work, it takes some time. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Whatever stage you're on the journey, it's fine. Just do whatever you need to do, right? Do what you feel is the most important thing. And if it doesn't work, don't worry about it, right? It just means that you learned that it didn't work, and that you can now try something else, right? Like, don't use the fact that I'm telling you that, like, you have to be emotionally unstable and, like, to feel different emotions at different times, right? Don't let that, like, be a new reason for you to beat yourself up, right? You know, I do that all the time. I beat myself up, but, like, at the end of the day, like, I always realized that it was kind of pointless. You know, like, life goes on. If anything, when you beat yourself up is a time when you need to, like, again, allowing your resistance, right? Beating yourself up is resisting yourself, disowning yourself, abandoning yourself. And instead of then adding more resistance on top of that by judging the side of you that judges yourself, just be okay with it. Just be like, yeah, I'm fucking judging myself. I'm beating myself up about it. Well done, me. You know, however you want to do it, you know, just as long as you love yourself, you know. And again, love is a strange word, because it's not very it's not very kind of precise in its meaning, but it's, you know, it's a word that is most closely kind of indicative of what I'm talking about, I guess. But anyway, yeah, so just to reiterate my message, my kind of, because I'm going to wrap up this portion of, I'm going to come back to it obviously because it's my central teaching and tapping into your sensitivity, but like to wrap up this kind of series, this kind of mini series I've done about, you know, tapping into your sensitivity, trusting in your experience, owning your experience, allowing yourself, and consulting your feelings, right? You know, adding like more of a feeling component to your life, you know, really like asking yourself, what do I actually want out of life? What do I actually want? And how can I make my life experience the most enjoyable possible? And if not enjoyable, how can I make it like the most honest? You know, I can't say that I necessarily enjoy like when I get pissed off at something or I get really scared of something, but at the very least I can be like, well, at least I can be honest. At least I don't have to be like inherently wrong for feeling these things. At least I could be honest and be like, I feel like I'm inherently wrong, and like then you get like leverage over it, right? So yeah, the gist of it, the gist of my realization is that is to release expectation that you have to be an emotionally regulated person, because yes, that's helpful in certain contexts. You know, if you're running a business, if you're in a social gathering that's where you kind of have like a desired, like, you know, a particular outcome that you want to achieve, maybe this isn't the most helpful, but then again, you never know, right? But you know, in spite of that, you know, let yourself make a game out of it. See how many emotions you can go through in a day. You know, that's probably the best message I have for you. You know, like make a game of it where you're like, you know, instead of trying to like be emotionally neutral all the time, just be like, how many emotions can I feel back to back that are completely opposite? Like, can I feel angry one minute, then really happy, then like jealous, then peaceful, then whatever, you know? And like, see how many times you can change your emotional state, right? And again, this is just a tool, right? In the same way that like just forcing an emotion, like willpower in that way, is a tool. In both instances, you know, of like this game that I just introduced to you, and also like just sustaining an emotion, which is the opposite. Those are both willpower tools, right? And they're both tools that you employ to get yourself into that sweet spot where you're like in alignment with the way that your feelings will naturally spring from you, right? Instead of like just of having to consciously force yourself to feel the emotions from a place of energetic insensitivity, you do these two tools. You know, again, like don't let the game become like overly dominant. Don't become like an emotional wreck through willpower. The point is that you want to get closer and closer to that sweet spot where like you feel aligned in your energetic sensitivity, right? In your rhythm of how the energy flows through you, right? So cool. That's kind of the finale of this series, right? I hope everything has been helpful. Like, I urge you to go back and watch these videos if you're interested in this aspect of spirituality, of personal development, emotionality, right? And, you know, and if you do, I hope you get something out of it, because it's been a very kind of poignant journey for me, let's just say, right? And it's been an interesting exploration. So cool. Hope that was helpful. And as always, I hope you're having a good day, and I will see you in the next entry. Peace out, guys. Whoosh.